Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chat for today, September 25th. We are almost to October. Can you believe it? Um, been an interesting week, and I'm excited to engage today with my co-presenter, Shaunti Knauth from National Louis University. Hi, Shaunti.
Hi.
So today, and actually, I should give her a little bit of backstory. Shaunti and she's actually my client as well as my colleague, and we are writing a chapter together for a book, Judah Viola's book, that's designed for independent consultants of all stripes, definitely for program evaluators. And he's with us here today as well. Um, anyhow, Shanti and I met actually through our own networks. Ironically, I met her through, I didn't realize this until we talked about this yesterday, but we met through um, um, the ICTIG through Judah, I believe. And so she works at National Louis University. I'm going to let her introduce herself and give some backstory to who she is. But one thing led to another, just in the way that we do networking. And she reached out for some support for a proposal. And I helped write several different program evaluation proposal sections, and we were very fortunate to be awarded two of them, and so we've been able to continue. Actually, no, three of them, but was canceled sadly. That being said, we've had a wonderful working relationship, and we've been able to leverage that into this conversation today. So, Shanti, why don't you give a little bit of backstory on who you are, and then we'll jump into our presentation today.
Sure. My name's Shaunti Knauth, and like Matt said, I work at National Louis University, which is a broad access university that has been around for a while now, 140 years, and we're right across from the Art Institute in Chicago. And my title there is I'm Director of Engaged Research, so I support faculty in growing research at the university. And then, as Matt alluded to, I write a lot of grants. But before I did that, I was actually in evaluation at one of the regional education labs, and then I was an evaluation consultant for quite a while. And I just remember when I would go to groups of evaluation consultants in general, it was just a group that I always felt really proud to be a part of because of the flexible, on time thinking, the deep commitment. So I'm really excited to be back here with you and looking forward to talking about networking today.
And as we mentioned, we're writing a chapter for Judah's book, and
Mhm.
Judah, I will ask you to talk after we're done with the session today about your book. I'd love to hear from you on that, but I want to jump into our presentation. Uh, but Shanti was a author in the original chapter on networking, and she asked me to support and help write the revision of this. So talk a little bit about the book and the chapter, and then we'll jump into why we're here doing this presentation as a kind of a piece of this, Shanti.
Sure. So, like Matt said, I got to do this quite a few years ago, right, Judah? And I wrote with, and I actually, my co-author at the time was my cousin, and we wrote a chapter on networking with a purpose. She was a really strong businesswoman who just excelled in networking, and we sort of translated it for the nonprofit and consulting world. And when Judah asked us to revise it and connected Matt and I on it, I was thrilled because I know how well Matt thinks about consulting and about networking. And so what we're doing today is just sort of talking about some of the basic principles of networking from Matt, and then just doing a little, spending some time actually trying out networking with a purpose, to both to give you an opportunity to connect. I also see people already connecting in the chat, which I love. I've seen some exchanges, but giving you time to actually network, to maybe try a slightly different approach to it. And then we would also welcome your feedback on whether it was useful to you, what you thought of the exercise, because that helps us make the chapter as useful as possible. One thing we're also interested about, in the beginning when Matt asked for good news and there was silence for a moment, these are, tough times in evaluation and consulting just all around, but just anything that pertains to the current context that you would think would help you deal with it in terms of networking or in terms of the book, we would really welcome your feedback on it. So, like I said, Matt will talk about some basic principles of networking. We'll do some networking with purpose, some breakout sessions together, and then would really welcome your feedback.
All right, let's jump into the presentation. So we kind of have this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I think that this was your slide, Shanti.
I know, I think we covered it all. Our
Oh, okay.
purpose is to add to your thinking on networking. We want to give you a chance to actually network, get feedback on the chapter, and then we'll talk about Matt's doing the basic principles, and I'll do a little bit on networking with a purpose.
All right. Okay, so we have a series of firsts, seconds, thirds, and fourths. The first principle that we think you should be thinking about for networking is, well, just doing really great work. The best way to create new work is to do good work with your current clients. Um, when we've done the surveys, which I think Judah is doing a survey right now on how did you find your next project or where's your next project likely to come from, the overwhelming answer is from a current client. And the next most likely place a project's going to come from is from somebody attached to that, some in some way connected to your current client, maybe a friend of your clients or a colleague of your clients who may be recommended. So it's really important to do good work, um, and networking with your clients and continuing to engage with your clients is super important. The second idea is to build your network. And guess what? You're doing that right now. So you're already onto your second. So you know what? Shaunti and I didn't actually practice this. Let me go back to this. Shaunti, did you have any thoughts on doing great work?
No, I'll just say that you're an example of that, Matt, that you're here. Matt did fantastic work from the very first proposal I worked on him. And so that brought him to more projects at NLU and to recommendations. It brings us together doing this work. So I just think it's so, it's just a foundation. Doesn't matter how much you network this if you don't do great work.
Yeah. So the second idea is to build your network, and we are doing that today. And how do you do that? I've got some different quotes in here. Feel free to read these as we're talking. But in many ways, it is to show up, find ways to show up in different ways that there's potential that you can make those connections. And so, in my experience, some of those ways are to find my local communities of practice, like with the Grant Professionals Association, or to be engaged within your local evaluation affiliate. In whatever ways you can, you want to be engaged with where your clients will likely go, or your desired clients may likely go. So if that means going to a conference, I'd say that makes a lot of sense. What are some of the ways that you think about building your network, Shaunti?
Um, I do think that what you said, sort of going to where people are, is essential. And going to conferences, going to smaller groups. I told Matt when I was first a consultant and trying to figure out what to do, there was a Chicago evaluators meeting, and I didn't feel like going, and I went, and I left with a chapter and the person who became my business partner. The chapter was this one. Judah and I talked, and then I met someone who she and I consulted together for a while. So just going to those smaller groups, talking and connecting, I think is just a really important way to build your network.
Great. So, and when we're talking about networking, I have this phrase, and I've done an entire session on this, and this continues to come back. If you've ever taken my pre-conference workshop on independent consulting, I think there's a lot of this is kind of a soft topic, but the whole idea of networking karma. So networking, so that means making yourself invaluable to others. That's the social arbitrage idea. And this comes from Keith Ferrazzi's book, but also giving without expectations of return. So you don't keep score. Because when you start to expect people to, when you do a favor for somebody and you say, you should do a favor for me too, or you start expecting it, you are kind of commoditizing. You're like putting value on it, like, and that expectation becomes kind of this awkward thing that happens. But if you give without expectation, in many ways, the return comes back even greater than whatever you've put out there. And that's the way I live my life. I live the way that I work with my partner in our business, and we try, even in tough times, and it's been tough lately, we try and do it best by everybody, with the idea that if we serve our clients, things will come back good to us in the long run. What are your thoughts on this, Shaunti?
Um, Well, as you can imagine, I totally agree. It really is. If you did the rather than rather than try and, sort of think of networks as getting people to owe you, which I think sometimes people do, sort of I did a favor for you. I mean, now you owe me one. Just again, just it goes along with doing good work. It's just like doing good, seeing how you can support people, and then also being really comfortable. I think also part of networking karma is being comfortable asking, and that's what we'll talk a little bit with networking with a purpose, but I think that's equally part of it, thinking of it as exchanges, that don't have to go both ways, but doing it as it
Yeah,
comes.
absolutely. Let's see what we got here. So, part of what I often talk about with the networking karma idea is imagine yourself in the social network analysis. Oftentimes we do social networking. I know a lot of you guys probably do this for your clients and you're and
Mhm.
thinking through how things are interacting. And so if you're thinking about how you operate within a community, and it's obvious you want to have the bigger edges, those lines between people, meaning you have an important role. Clearly, I was thinking about that when I've invested so much time in this IC topic chat. Not that I've ever found ways to like personally profit or directly profit off of it, but I have. I've profited on just the experience of meeting all of you and connecting with all of you. And when I've I've run into my own hiccups, I know some of you have been there for me, and I've been there for you as well. And so that's been one way that I've connected within our community of practice within the IC TIG. But I try and do that also, and I encourage my colleagues to do this within their communities of practice, particularly with our clients. And so, case in point, earlier this week, we were invited to go to a meeting uh, to present, and with the idea that we could present. And of course, I always try to present because why not just get out there in front of people and talk about program evaluation or the program that we're supporting. And whenever possible, I try and involve my clients with that kind of work because it helps them. You know, it makes them look good, and they can brag about how they went and presented. And so that's a great way to find your people by just getting out there in front of people and connecting with your clients, particularly at conferences. Or what are some of the ways that you've thought about this, Shaunti?
I think also the idea of thinking about how let me think of how to formulate my thoughts on this. Thinking about how you can serve your clients by connecting them. It's to build on what Matt said. For example, this is just a little different, but a faculty member I'm working with right now has done a phenomenal job building a partnership for our university with an external agency. And partly she went to them as a researcher and started showing them possibilities for presenting, just like Matt said. So I think it's both like find your people, but also create what I would say is create the settings for your people too. Create when you can create opportunities for the people that you want to reach to come together or to present. So that's partly how I think about it, both finding your people, like we said earlier, going to TIGs, going to groups, but also creating those opportunities to bring people together.
Yeah, I'm glad you said TIGs because I didn't talk about this specifically. Obviously, we're kind of operating with the Independent Consulting Topical Interest Group or the IC TIG
Mhm.
today, but the TIGs within AEA are a great way to and a great resource to reach out and connect with other people doing similar work, whether it be within methodology or within the type of work. Like for me, I also spend a lot of time with the higher ed TIG. That's where you can find people who are doing this type of work and frankly learn more about it. You volunteer your time, and then you get to know other people who are doing this, and they can say, "Oh, I should reach out to Matt because Matt is a resource on X, Y, and Z." And so hypothetically, that's another way to develop new and different projects. That's classic networking just by putting yourself out there. I tell it to my kids who are trying to find their way in clubs. Like, well, if you go to a club and ask to help out at an event, you'll be put to work, stacking chairs or something like that. And in the process, you'll get to meet other people who have similar interests. And so next thing you know, they're going to ask you to be the membership chair or something ridiculous like that. And that's the way you meet more people and make friends. And that's the same thing we do with creating opportunities for us within our businesses. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Let's see. I think we have the so building the connection, reaching back when you meet people and you know creating more of this connection, oftentimes the best way to do it after you meet a first person, find that way to connect back to them. And remember, this isn't about you and saying how great you are to that person. It's about finding a way after you've met that first person, exchange that business card, um, to provide value back to them. What is it that they needed? What is it that they talked about? Hopefully you're taking notes after you meet with them. I just like I said, I was in a meeting earlier this week, and so I was writing things on the back of these business cards so I could remember what we talked about, so that when I reach back out to them, I could say, "Oh, hey, I know we talked about data visualization. Here's an example of some data visualization that we've done within, the firm that I work for." And so that's a way to continue to strengthen and build that connection and create some interest and perhaps make yourself memorable to that person who's probably bombarded by lots of people over the days. What are some of the ways that you build connections, Shaunti?
Kind of like it says here, I know the wording looks a little odd, question answerers. This is thinking about networking with a purpose, which is when you're always seeking out information. But just basically, I also find if you ask a couple people the same question, for example, you're looking for information on a particular methodology or perhaps on a particular organization you're interested in working with, sometimes if you can share back, I also asked others and I learned this too. Like you're sort of building their fund of information as much is something that I find kind of useful. And then I think people just really want to know that they did help you. So telling them how they did is just so invaluable when you network.
Absolutely. So I know that we want to get into
Mhm.
the networking portion of the session today, and we've probably already taken more time than we expected to. But I
That's
did,
okay.
in the ways that I do this, I like my 5.5 random ideas. So I had 5.5 random networking ideas. I had a wholly different slide until after I did some actual networking, um, and without necessarily thinking I was going to be doing this presentation. But I was like, okay, here's some things that kind of occurred to me earlier this week when I was in the networking 101 world in Washington, D.C. Don't be afraid to have a unique experience with a client. Story is 10 minutes long, so I'm going to summarize it down to I was walking near the mall. One thing led to another. We went to the Washington Monument. We went to the um, Lincoln Memorial. We found our way all the way down to the Thomas Jefferson Memorial, and then we walked all the way back to our hotel after 6 miles with a client. And it was just a wonderful experience. It really deepened our experience, and through that kind of experience, I know we will have that opportunity to continue working together. Wasn't I wasn't being manipulative. We were just kind of rolling with the day, but it was a neat opportunity to just do something kind of out of the ordinary. I said it earlier, don't keep score, give freely of yourself, and I think you'll find that this networking karma idea actually works. Business cards aren't dead. I went to AEA a couple years ago, and a session was canceled, and I said, "Well, why don't you guys all give me your business cards so we can make sure that the presenter gives us their slides?" And nobody had business cards; they were all millennials or something. And I thought, "Well, that's interesting." I realized, isn't that funny? I realized when I was there, like are times when you don't have that 30 to 30 seconds to 2 minutes to actually get your phone out and do QR codes, or I'll email you, which is, I know, a strategy. Sometimes it's easy enough to just like hand the business card over and say, we're going to connect after the fact, because you may be in a session where somebody's talking and you don't want to disrupt it or whatever. Or you're like, oh, I got to go. Here, take my card. So business cards aren't dead. Just that's the Gen Xer and me saying that. You guys are welcome to disagree with me. If you're only focused on the next project or sale, you're missing the big picture. Projects are not individual things. Clients aren't individual. There's a bigger world at play here. Um, Remember the people that you're working with. Um, if you're burning bridges to get that next project, you're probably burning your opportunity to do things down the road. So just be considerate of the bigger picture. Okay, um, that's all I'll say on that. Go to your client conferences and, when possible, try to present, because that's a great way to meet new people, connect better with your clients, make your clients look great, and you get to stand in front of people and act like you're a professional and you know what you're talking about, which hypothetically you all are. But this is another way to demonstrate your proficiency and your professionalism in a conference. And so, plus you can put it on your resume and you can brag about it and you can put it on LinkedIn and all those things. So, all right. So we are going to break in just a second and we're going to stop the recording, but we are going to do our breakout sessions. Here's the sessions coming up. I will be out of town next week. I'm looking for somebody to facilitate. So if you're interested, reach out. We will have Nina Sabari is going to be talking about 7 lessons in 7 years next week. So that will be great. Unbelievably, the week after that will be our 250th session. We started back in 2020, and I'll be doing the core topic on contracting. Our TIG leadership is going to come talk to us in advance of the conference after that. And then we'll have some other, you can see the other sessions there. So I'm going to stop the recording, but if you're around here, feel free to please stick around. We're going to do some breakout rooms, and Shaunti is going to give instructions for that. So as I was saying, if you're here, stick around. If you're out in YouTube land, we'll see you guys later.